So as we start our downswing, there's a lot of stuff happening down below, and I need to add in some right side bend fairly quickly so that I don't wander my body way over here. Because if I just stayed in front bend and left bend, I wind up too far out in front. So as we change directions, now you can start to see I'm getting some crunch up here in my right side, which is keeping me centered up on top of the ball.
Okay, video 2 with myself and Mr. Milo out in Arizona here. How to start the downswing, but this time the upper body. Hope you guys enjoyed the first video. Another friendly reminder, 14-day free trial, CogornoGolf.com from now until April 10th, Master Sunday. We'd love to work with you there. We'll put that link down below. Enjoy the video. All right, Milo, so let's talk about how to start the downswing and what the upper body does. Now, there's a couple pieces that we want to talk about, kind of macro motions.
Perfect. Well, earlier we talked about how the lower body reflexes.
Yep.
The upper body does the same thing.
There you go.
So the upper body is reflexing. So you're gaining a little bit of bend this way in transition.
Yep.
Your pelvis is reflexing. Everything's reflexing.
Yep.
And then it quickly bounces from reflexing into right side bending.
Love it.
Okay.
And for those who don't know, right, if you're just standing here normal, you stay here with that beautiful shirt you have on here.
Okay.
If you're standing straight up and down, right, a reflexing would be your upper body bending down towards the ground, right?
Bending over more.
It's simple terms.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So the reflexing is the upper body, as you start your downswing, is bending over more towards the ground, right? And then the second part of that, if you can go up to the top of the backswing one more time. The second part of that is obviously there's a tilt here, right? Or there's a side bend. And so as you start your downswing, yeah, exactly. So can we say maintenance of left side bend?
Yeah, it's probably maintained.
Just to start.
And I'm gaining a little bit of flexion in my pelvis.
Yes.
So I'm bending from here a little bit just to start.
And so this left side and left shoulder is staying lower in early transition. And then as we go, there's going to be this right side bend. It's going to be introduced.
Yep.
That would be kind of the second phase of it, right?
Exactly.
The flexing part is part 1. This is happening at the same time.
Yeah, it's all happening simultaneous and it's pretty quick. But
yeah, I like to break it up for
it's what's happening.
It's reflexing, it's left side bend, left shoulder staying lower, and then right side bend would be kind of part 2. And then there's going to be a turn.
Yes.
But the turn part isn't really independent, is it?
No, the turn is not coming from the upper body. The turn is coming from down below.
Yeah, right. So the downswing starting from the lower body pieces we talked about, that's really what's causing the torso to do the turning.
Yeah.
So there's 3 things going on. There's the flexing, there's the side bend, there's the turning component. Now, before we dive into feels and drills and how to go through these, guys, let's take a look at a couple good players and show you how they do these 3 motions. Okay, so let's take a look at how to start the downswing with the upper body. 3 main pieces: the flexing forward of the upper body, the right side bend, number 2, and the rotation, number 3. So if we look at Adam Scott here, again, some of these things not perfectly easy to see in 2 dimensions, but basically the flexing forward part, if we were to draw a pretend line down the middle of his body to start down, what we'd be looking for to start the initial transition would be his upper body and chest getting just slightly closer to the ground as he reflexes, which would be, let's call it the distance of him and the golf ball. If we were to kind of measure this distance here, we're saying we want that distance to be getting slightly shorter from the top in transition. As he'd be doing this flexing part, you'd like to see the belt buckle be facing slightly more down towards the ground compared to the top, and the chest and shirt button slightly more down towards the ground. That'd be really the reflexing component. Then from face on, we would see the side bend. So at the top, right, clearly here, his left shoulder is lower than his right shoulder, right? So he's in left side bend, he's got tilt to his shoulders. His left shoulder is lower than his right shoulder. In early transition, that lead shoulder is going to remain lower, mostly because of the lower body motions. But from here on through, we'll start to see the right side bend. Think of right side bend as the distance between the right shoulder and right hip, right shoulder and right hip. And that distance would be getting smaller as he begins his downswing pattern. So the distance between his right shoulder and right hip would be getting less. Those 2 would be getting closer together. You see that there? As he's doing his downswing pattern. So he's flexing forward, belt buckle and chest more down towards the ground, and he's getting his right shoulder closer to his right hip. His left shoulder stays lower in transition because it was lower at the top and the lower body. And then lastly, we have the rotation component. Most all of that happening because of the lower body motion. Okay, Milo, so part number one, as I start down with my upper body, reflexing, let's talk about some feels, right? So if I were to go, let's say up to the top of my backswing,
Okay.
and I'm starting down with the reflexing parts, because there's components to this, right? But as a feel, that would be my belt buckle.
You're going to feel like your belt buckle's tilting more down.
Belt buckle tilting more. So if I had like an arrow out of this for simplicity here, and I'm going to work down, I'm going to feel like my belt buckle tilts down towards the ground, flexing. My upper body, or kind of chest shirt buttons from here with this, will feel like they get closer to the ground.
Yep.
Is that fair as I go through here? And so to me, those would maybe be like the main two feels.
Yeah.
Right from the top, I'm feeling my belt buckle lowering, reflexing. I'm feeling my upper body reflexing as I start down in terms of that part.
Yeah.
That sound about right?
That sounds about exactly
Check
right.
mark. And so as I'm doing this, right, as I'm hitting balls, again, if I already do this, no big deal. But if I don't, and I want to start to feel, I can start with something as simple as that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You'll probably hit the first couple shots fat.
Yeah, yeah. And then learn how to match some other components.
And then learn how to
it.
match the other pieces with what your hands do.
Yeah, and we've talked to some other ones, right? Like obviously, if my belt buckle is gonna go down, there's flexing, my upper body goes down, and we just simplified to that component, and I'm literally closer to the ball, my trail arm and trail wrist have to be adjusted. Right, the length of the lever, specifically my trail arm, would have to be a little bit shorter, turn stuff, etc. But for now, let's say I'm starting with just those two. Belt buckle feels like it points lower to the ground, and chest gets lower to the ground. Kind of this would be the covering sensation, right? As I'm hitting some. So let's do one here with those two feels. Belt buckle and chest down. I know you like a little shorter and slower to start with. Let's see what I can do. Belt buckle, chest down. Yeah, good. And that was a little heavy, right?
Yep.
And so, and that's to be expected for me in the beginning. If I'm going to actually get lower, I got to make some adjustments.
Yeah, you're going to have more extension in your right wrist and a little more bend in your arm. So
yeah,
to match that up.
So if I do that, and for someone, because we're not going to talk about that at length here, you can see that in the matching arms to body video we did. But I would feel like my right wrist is more bent back and my trail arm is more bent.
Exactly.
Yeah, as I go through this. Let's do one more. So belt buckle. How do I start my downswing? Belt buckle points down towards the ground. Notice my lead leg going external by itself as I do that. That's another conversation. Chest is working closer to the ground as I go down. Let's go ahead and do one like that. Belt buckle and chest reflexing. Yeah, good.
That was good.
So that would be part number one. Now let's pause for a second. Let's talk about the second part we talked about the side bend. Okay, Milo, so part number two, beyond the flexion part, would be the side bends. So let's kind of talk through that from the top of the backswing. How do I start my downswing? I know we have kind of left side bend and a right side bend.
So as we start our downswing, there's a lot of stuff happening down below, and I need to add in some right side bend fairly quickly so that I don't wander my body way over here. Because if I just stayed in front bend and left bend, I wind up too far out in front. So as we change directions, now you can start to see I'm getting some crunch up here in my right side, which is keeping me centered up on top of the ball.
So I think two things for someone who doesn't know, side bend in a simple term being shoulder and hip closer together.
Yep.
Is that fair? And so that action that's happening, if you go to the top of the swing again, I love those visuals. Now, already your lead shoulder is lower than your trail shoulder, right? And already your lead side of your pelvis is lower. What we're saying here is when you do the transition pieces with your lead side of the pelvis, that lead shoulder is going to stay lower in early transition as a reaction to that. And to not have your upper body go so far forward towards the target.
If I stayed in left tilt, you'd see I'd be way over here. So immediately I bounced into more of a right side bend to keep me centered up.
So love that. So in terms of the feels from the upper body, that lead side, let's flip flop spots. That lead side, please. That lead side of the shoulder being lower than the right is going to maintain that a little bit from my lower body action. The sensations or the feels, right, of what we're doing is going to be adding in the right side bend component.
Yes.
And there could be various feels for that, but the trail shoulder and trail hip getting closer together, right? And so let's say I'm the player who overdoes the left side bend, has the no trail side, no side bend. So they're here and they do get this part.
Okay.
Right? I'm that player and I want to try and fix that. Am I starting off from the top here like this? Just kind of getting a feel. I'm almost going to feel this as an exaggeration.
Matched with what the lower body's supposed to. There you go.
Yeah. So if we just looked at that and I have too much of here, I would feel my right shoulder getting close to my right hip. Now in reality, mixed with what I currently do and my other pieces, that's going to keep me,
That keeps you centered.
pretty centered. So
Yeah.
right shoulder and right hip getting closer together as I'm doing my flexing and turning part. So my belt buckle and chest go down towards the ground. My right shoulder and my right hip get closer together.
Yep.
Can we kind of put those as part 1 and part 2?
That's perfect.
So let's go ahead and do one here with that. And again, I'm not, you know, depending upon what I'm currently doing, I'm not maybe thinking about all this at one time, but just for the sake of examples, that feels really good and athletic. Belt buckle and chest down, right hip getting closer to my right shoulder in early transition. Let's go ahead and do one. Right hip and right shoulder closer, chest down. Yeah, and that feels really good and really athletic. And even though I'm putting effort into thinking about doing it, it feels effortless, if you will,
Okay.
and kind of natural and athletic, which is right up your alley.
That's what I do.
And so that is the second part, the side bend. Let's break here for a second again, and then we'll talk a little bit about the rotation piece. Okay, Milo, so part number 3 here, we said the flexing, the side bend, and the rotation.
Yes.
And I think we can kind of put a bow on this one and keep it pretty simple in that the upper body rotation pieces, assuming nothing else, are pretty much primarily happening because of the lower body pieces.
For sure, in transition, the upper body is not rotating on its own yet. So it's rotating because of what the lower body's done.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not as though, like, if you were to go up to the top again, I'm holding your pelvis and you're like, open it, you're right. So
No.
So any upper body rotation that's going on, that rib cage rotation, torso rotation, is a byproduct of what the lower body is doing. And so, you know, I think with these things, I don't think we got to do much more on that. I think with these things, the idea is, hey, here's what's going on. It's these 3 pieces. Work with a coach to find out which one or all 3 of those someone would need more of and kind of why, and learn how to put the pieces together while having some feels, you know, right? The feeling of the flexing and the chest getting more down, the belt buckle down, the feeling of the right shoulder and the right hip kind of getting closer together and turning. And now they really all go together, right?
Yeah, it's what's happening. In order for me to be able to turn and stay more or less centered,
Yep.
and stay in my inclinations, those are all things that have to happen.
Yeah. And these are things that are happening in a split second.
Yes.
And they're happening at the same time while we're breaking those down. So I love that beautiful explanation. I think that really describes well how to start the downswing, right? And maybe in another video we'll talk more about what the arms and hands can do, but this is supposed to be more upper body and then lower body. So beautiful, man. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video and like what you saw out of Milo, and I know that you did, we'll put a link in the description with his YouTube channel, Golfletics. A lot of awesome stuff. Also, if you like this video, watch both of these here right after you're done with this. They're gonna help you with more understanding about the pieces we talked about. One more time, if you like the video, click the like button down below. Really helps our channel out, the notification bell, and click subscribe. Thank you guys for watching.